The room was freezing. Not because the heat was broken, because no one had bothered to turn it on. The boy stood in front of a wall of blinking lights. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from knowing what would happen if he failed. Behind him, a man in a suit checked his watch. Third time in 2 minutes. You have 1 hour, the man said. His voice was flat. Empty. Fix it, or everyone walks away. The boy didn't turn around, just stared at the screens like they held the answer to something bigger than circuits and code. I can fix this, he whispered. The man almost smiled. Almost. Because he'd heard that line before. 12 years ago. From someone else. Someone he'd lost. And he had no idea this kid was about to shatter everything he thought he knew about himself. Before we continue, do me a favor. Hit subscribe and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I want to know this story reaches you in Lagos, London, Los Angeles, Sydney, or wherever you are right now. Let's see how far this goes. Now, let's get back to where it all began. His phone buzzed at 5:47 a.m. Not 5:45, not 6 o'clock. Exactly 5:47. Because that's when the market opened in Tokyo, and by the time New York woke up, he needed to already be 3 decisions ahead. His name was Vincent Cross, 62 years old, net worth somewhere north of 400 million. The exact number changed faster than most people's heart rates. He didn't check his phone himself. His assistant did that. Filtered it. Categorized it. Red for urgent. Yellow for soon. Gray for never. Vincent's hands moved across the mahogany desk. Signing. Flipping. Tapping. Always doing something. He hadn't made his own coffee in 11 years. Hadn't driven himself anywhere in 9. Hadn't fixed a single thing with his own 2 hands in longer than he could remember. Why would he? That's what people were for. Problems didn't require his presence. They required his money. His signature. His 30 seconds of attention before someone else made them disappear. The office was silent except for the hum of the air system and the occasional click of his pen. He preferred silence. Silence meant everything was running exactly as it should. His calendar was a battlefield. Every 15-minute block claimed. Meetings stacked like dominoes. Calls scheduled back to back across 4 time zones. Lunch wasn't a break. It was a transaction. Control wasn't something Vincent thought about anymore. It was just the air he breathed. At 9:12 a.m., his head of operations walked in without knocking. That was allowed. Barely. We have a situation. Vincent didn't look up. Define situation. The main server cluster. Total failure. We're running on backup, but it's degrading fast. Tech team says 6 hours before we lose market access entirely. Now Vincent looked up. 6 hours meant missed trades. Missed trades meant missed millions. Missed millions meant explanations to people who didn't accept explanations. Who's handling it? Caltech engineer. Flew in this morning. He's in the server room now. Vincent's hands went back to the contract in front of him. Then why are you telling me? Because he says it's not fixable. Not in time. He's recommending we go offline. Do a full infrastructure rebuild. Could take 3 days. Vincent's jaw tightened. 3 days was a month in his world. Get someone else. We did. For someone else's. They all said the same thing. For the first time that morning, Vincent's hands stopped moving. I want to see it myself. The head of operations blinked. Sir, you don't need to. I didn't ask what I need to do. 7 minutes later, Vincent stood in the server room. Cold. Loud. Rows of blinking lights and tangled cables that looked like the inside of something dying. The Caltech engineer was explaining the failure in terms Vincent barely followed. Corrupted nodes. Cascading errors. Systemic collapse. Vincent heard the words, but didn't listen. He was watching the clock on the wall. 9:31 a.m. Every minute that passed was money evaporating. So you're telling me there's no fix? The engineer hesitated. Not one that works in your time frame, no. Vincent turned to leave. This was someone else's problem now. He'd make calls. Find another firm. Throw money at it until it bent. That's when he saw him. A kid. Couldn't have been more than 13. 14 maybe. Sitting on the floor near the back corner of the room, legs crossed. staring at one of the server racks like he was reading a book. Vincent stopped. Who's that? The head of operations followed his gaze. Oh, I think that's Ricky's son. The maintenance guy? Probably waiting for his dad. The boy didn't look up. His hands rested on his knees. Completely still. Completely focused. Vincent frowned. Get him out of here. But before anyone could move, the boy spoke. His voice was quiet. Calm. Like he was commenting on the weather. I can fix this. The room went silent. The Caltech engineer looked at the boy, then at Vincent, then back at the boy. He let out a short, uncomfortable laugh. Vincent didn't laugh. He just stared. The boy still hadn't looked up. Vincent's assistant stepped forward. Come on, kid. Let's get you back to. I can fix this, the boy said again. Same tone. Same certainty. This time, Vincent's mouth curved into something that almost resembled a smile. Not cruel. Not mocking. Just automatic. The smile of a man who'd heard 1,000 impossible promises and learned to recognize them all. He turned back toward the door. Someone get him out. But as Vincent walked away, his hands stayed in his pockets. And for reasons he couldn't explain, he felt the slightest pull to look back. He didn't. This shouldn't have required his attention. So why did it? Vincent made it halfway down the hallway before he stopped. Not because he wanted to. Because something felt unfinished. He stood there for 3 seconds, then turned around. When he walked back into the server room, the boy was standing now, right in front of the damaged rack, his fingers hovering an inch above the cables, but not touching anything. The Caltech engineer was packing his equipment. The head of operations was on his phone. Nobody was paying attention to the kid. Vincent crossed his arms. What's your name? The boy glanced over. Theo. Theo what? Just Theo. Vincent's eyes narrowed. How old are you? 14. And you think you can fix a $4 million server system that a Caltech graduate just called unfixable? Theo looked back at the rack. Yeah. Not cocky. Not defensive. Just yeah. Vincent let out a breath through his nose. You even know what's wrong with it? Node corruption in the primary cluster. Spread to the backups through the replication protocol. Cascading failure locked the system into a loop. It keeps trying to restore from corrupted data, which corrupts more data, which triggers another restore attempt. The room went quiet. The Caltech engineer stopped packing. Looked up. Stared. Vincent's jaw tightened. Where'd you learn that? Theo shrugged. I read. You read? Yeah. And I watch. Your maintenance guy, my dad. He works on these systems twice a week. I've been coming here with him since I was 9. I've seen most of the failures you've had. Watched how they got fixed. Vincent studied him. The kid's hands were still now, resting at his sides. Calm. No fidgeting. No nervousness. Most adults couldn't stand still under Vincent's stare. This kid didn't even blink. You're telling me you've just been sitting in corners watching server repairs for 5 years? Pretty much. Why? Theo paused. Thought about it. Because nobody else was paying attention. Something about the way he said it landed wrong. Or right. Vincent couldn't tell which. The head of operations stepped forward. Sir, we really need to make a decision. If we're going offline, we need to do it now before. Give me a minute, Vincent said. He walked closer to Theo. Close enough to see the kid's eyes. Brown. Clear. No hesitation in them. Let's say I believe you know what's wrong. Fixing it is different. I know. You've never actually done this before. No. Then how do you know you can? Theo looked at him. Really looked at him. Because I've already done it in my head 40 times. I know where the break is. I know what needs to be reset. I know the sequence. I just need to do it for real. Vincent felt something shift in his chest. Couldn't name it. Didn't like it. He glanced at the engineer. Is what he said accurate? The diagnosis. The engineer hesitated. Then nodded. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. Vincent looked back at Theo. If I let you try this and you make it worse, we lose everything. You understand that. I won't make it worse. You can't promise that. Yeah, I can. Vincent's hands came out of his pockets. Fingers tapping against his leg. Thinking. Calculating. This was insane. letting a 14-year-old kid touch a system that handled hundreds of millions in daily transactions. But the alternative was 3 days offline. 3 days of bleeding money and reputation. And something about the kid's certainty made Vincent's doubt feel smaller. He hated that. You get 1 hour, Vincent said. You fix it, or you walk away and let the adults handle it. Clear. Clear. And if you break anything at all, you're done. Your dad's done. Everyone in this room is done. Understood. Theo nodded. Understood. Vincent checked his watch. 9:58 a.m. Clock starts now. Theo didn't move toward the servers yet. He just stood there, looking, thinking. The engineer frowned. Kid, you're wasting time. Theo ignored him. His eyes tracked across the rack, left to right, top to bottom, like he was reading something invisible. Vincent watched him, watched his hands. They stayed perfectly still. Then, after 30 seconds of silence, Theo stepped forward. He reached for a cable on the second row, paused, pulled his hand back, reached for a different one, lower, tucked behind a routing panel. This one first, Theo said quietly. The engineer stepped closer. Wait, that's not even part of the corrupted cluster. That's environmental monitoring. Theo pulled the cable free. I know. Then why are you? Because it's sending bad voltage reads to the restoration protocol. Every time the system tries to reboot, it thinks there's a power instability and aborts. You have to remove the false trigger before you can clean the corruption. The engineer's mouth opened, then closed. Vincent's pulse ticked up, just slightly. Theo set the cable aside, moved to the next panel. His hands worked quickly now. No hesitation, no second guessing. He wasn't guessing. He knew. Vincent's arms uncrossed. His hands hung at his sides. For the first time in years, he didn't know what to do with them. The boy didn't look back, didn't ask for help, didn't ask for permission. He just worked. And Vincent realized something that made his stomach turn. He couldn't remember the last time he'd seen someone actually believe in what they were doing. Not pretend, not perform, believe. The thought disappeared as quickly as it came, but it left a mark. 10 minutes in, Theo hit his first problem. The backup server wasn't responding. At all. He stood there, staring at the blank screen. His hands hovered over the keyboard, but didn't press anything. The engineer saw it. That's the secondary node. It's completely bricked. That's why I said this wasn't fixable in time. You'd need to rebuild the entire. It's not bricked, Theo said. Kid, I've been doing this for 12 years. That node is. It's in safe mode. Someone triggered a manual shutdown and didn't log it. The system thinks it's still running, so it won't let you restart it. The engineer blinked. How do you know that? Because the indicator light is amber, not red. Red means dead. Amber means waiting. The engineer looked at the light, then back at Theo. His face changed. Vincent watched the exchange from 6 feet away, arms still at his sides. He hadn't moved since Theo started. Theo knelt down, pulled open a panel near the base of the rack. Inside was a small manual reset switch, the kind nobody used anymore because everything was automated. He flipped it. The screen blinked, then loaded. The engineer's mouth opened. I didn't even know that was there. Theo stood up. Most people don't. Vincent's head of operations leaned in close. Whispered, Sir, even if he gets it running, there's no way to verify stability in under an hour. We should really consider. No, Vincent said. But I said no. The head of operations stepped back. Vincent didn't know why he said it. He should have agreed. Should have pulled the plug on this whole thing and gone with the 3-day rebuild. But something kept him watching. Theo moved to the next panel. His fingers traced a line of cables. He pulled one free, swapped it with another, put the first one back in a different slot. The Caltech engineer frowned. Wait, you're rerouting the replication path. Yeah, that's not standard protocol. If you do that and the corruption's still active, you'll spread it to the tertiary system. The corruption's not active anymore. How do you know? Because I already isolated it. 3 steps ago. The engineer stared. You didn't tell anyone you did that. Theo glanced at him. You didn't ask. Vincent's mouth twitched. Almost smiled. Didn't. The boy kept working. No wasted movement. No hesitation. Like he'd done this 100 times before. But he hadn't. Vincent knew that. Everyone in the room knew that. So why did it look so easy? Another 4 minutes passed. Then 5. Then 6. Theo stopped. Straightened up. Looked at the main monitor. Nothing happened. The screen stayed dark. The engineer exhaled. Kid, I appreciate the effort, but... The screen flickered, then lit up. Lines of code scrolled past. Fast. Then faster. Then stopped. A single message appeared in green text. System restored. All nodes operational. The room went dead silent. The head of operations stared. No way. The engineer stepped forward. Checked the diagnostics. His hands moved quickly across the keyboard, pulling up logs. Error reports. System status. Everything came back clean. He looked at Theo, then at Vincent. This shouldn't be possible. Vincent didn't respond. He was still staring at the screen. Theo wiped his hands on his jeans. Told you I could fix it. The assistant standing near the door let out a short laugh. Not loud. Just a quick, surprised sound. Like when you see something you weren't expecting and your brain doesn't know what else to do. Vincent heard it. And before he could stop himself, he smiled. Not big. Just a small curve at the corner of his mouth. The kind of smile you give when someone says something absurd but harmless. When a kid asks if they can carry all the groceries by themselves, and you know they can't, but it's sweet that they tried. That kind of smile. Except Theo did carry the groceries. And Vincent's smile faded the second he realized it. The boy didn't see it. He was already turning back toward the servers, double-checking connections, making sure everything held. Vincent's hands slipped back into his pockets. The head of operations stepped closer. Sir, we should run a full diagnostic. Make sure there's no underlying. Do it, Vincent said. His voice was quieter now. Flatter. The engineer was still staring at the screen. I've never seen anyone route a replication path that way. It shouldn't work. The system should have rejected it. Theo looked over. It works if you map the node sequence in reverse. The system doesn't reject it. It just doesn't expect it. Where did you learn that? I didn't. I figured it out. The engineer shook his head slowly. You're 14. Yeah. And you just fixed a system that I couldn't. Theo shrugged. You could have fixed it. You just didn't see it the same way. Vincent's chest tightened. Just a little. Just enough to notice. The boy wasn't bragging. Wasn't performing. He wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. He just did what he said he'd do. And that made it worse. Because Vincent couldn't remember the last time someone surprised him. Really surprised him. Not impressed him. Not exceeded expectations. Surprised him. Like the ground shifting under your feet and realizing you were standing on something that wasn't as solid as you thought. Theo turned around. Looked at Vincent. It's fixed. You can check it yourself if you want. Vincent didn't move. How much time left? The head of operations checked his watch. 41 minutes. Vincent's eyes stayed on Theo. You finished early. Didn't need the whole hour. Why not? Theo tilted his head. Because it was simpler than everyone thought. Vincent's jaw tightened. The boy stood there, waiting, calm. And Vincent realized something that turned his stomach cold. He had no idea what to say next. Vincent cleared his throat. Run the full diagnostic. The engineer nodded. Started typing. Numbers filled the screen. System checks. Node verifications. Bandwidth tests. Everything running green. 3 minutes passed. Then 5. No errors. No warnings. Nothing. The head of operations leaned in. Whispered. It's holding, sir. Everything's stable. Vincent didn't respond. He was watching Theo. The kid had stepped back from the servers. Hands in his pockets now. Just waiting. Not proud. Not anxious. Just present. The diagnostic finished. The engineer turned around. It's clean. Better than clean, actually. Response time is faster than before the crash. Vincent's assistant spoke up. How is that possible? The engineer shook his head. He optimized the routing while he was fixing it. I didn't even notice him do it. All eyes turned to Theo. The boy shrugged. It was inefficient before. Fix that too. Vincent felt something crack inside his chest. Small, barely there, but real. He walked closer to Theo, stopped 3 feet away. You did good work. Theo nodded. Thanks. That wasn't a compliment. That was an observation. Okay. Vincent's hands came out of his pockets. He crossed his arms. How much does your father make here? Annually. Theo blinked. I don't know. Maybe 40,000. And you live where? North Side. Near the warehouses. Vincent processed that. North Side meant cramped apartments. Thin walls. Streets that didn't get plowed in winter. You go to school? Yeah. Lincoln Middle. Grades? Mostly A's. Some B's in English. You don't like writing? I like it fine. Just not the way they want me to do it. Vincent almost smiled again. Caught himself. He looked at the head of operations. Give me a contract. Standard NDA. Consultant rate. The head of operations frowned. Sir, you heard me. For the kid. For Theo. Theo's eyes narrowed. What for? Vincent looked back at him. Because you just saved this company somewhere between $8 and $12 million. And I don't leave debts unpaid. I didn't do it for money. I know. That's why I'm paying you. Theo shifted his weight. Uncomfortable now. I don't need. $5,000, Vincent said. One-time payment. Deposited into an account we'll set up for you. Your father will have signing authority until you're 18. The room went quiet. Theo stared at him. That's too much. No. It's significantly less than you earned. But it's what I'm offering. I can't take that. You already did. The second you fix my system. Theo looked away. Jaw tight. Vincent recognized that look. He'd seen it in mirrors. Years ago. Pride fighting with need. Need usually won. There's a condition, Vincent said. Theo looked back. What condition? You come back. Once a week. Saturdays. 3 hours. You work with my tech team. Learn the systems. I'll pay you $200 per session. The engineer's eyes went wide. Sir, that's... Vincent raised a hand. Silence. Theo frowned. Why? Because talent like yours doesn't appear often. And when it does, smart people invest in it. I'm not an investment. Everyone's an investment. Some just pay better returns than others. Theo's hands came out of his pockets, crossed over his chest, mirroring Vincent without realizing it. And if I say no? Vincent smiled. Thin. Sharp. Then you walk out of here with nothing. And 6 months from now, when something else breaks, I'll remember the kid who could have helped but chose pride instead. That's not fair. No. It's business. Theo's jaw worked. Thinking. Calculating. Vincent knew that look too. The math happening behind the eyes. What $5,000 meant. What $200 a week could do over a year. The boy was smart enough to see the opportunity. The question was whether he was proud enough to refuse it. 10 seconds passed. Then 15. Finally, Theo spoke. One condition of my own. Vincent raised an eyebrow. You're negotiating? Yeah. Go ahead. My dad keeps his job. No matter what. You don't fire him. You don't cut his hours. You don't make his life harder because of this. Vincent studied him. You think I'd punish your father for your success? I think powerful people do things for reasons nobody else understands. So I'm making sure. Something shifted in Vincent's chest. Heavier this time. The kid didn't trust him. Smart. Agreed, Vincent said. Your father's position is secure. In writing. Vincent's mouth twitched. You want it in writing. Yeah. You're 14. And you're a millionaire. We both know which one of us needs the protection more. The assistant behind Vincent let out a quiet breath. Almost a laugh. Almost. Vincent stared at Theo. The kid stared back. Neither blinked. Then Vincent turned to his head of operations. Add a clause. The father's employment is guaranteed for a minimum of 3 years. Non-negotiable termination protection except for gross misconduct. The head of operations nodded slowly. Yes, sir. Vincent looked back at Theo. Extended his hand. Deal. Theo looked at the hand. Then at Vincent's face. He didn't shake. Not yet. Why are you really doing this? Vincent's hand stayed extended. Because I don't like wasting potential. And you're too useful to ignore. That's it. That's it. Theo watched him for another 3 seconds, then reached out, shook his hand. Vincent's grip was firm, practiced, the handshake of a man who'd closed 1,000 deals. Theo's grip matched it. When they let go, Vincent checked his watch. You start next Saturday, 9 a.m. Don't be late. I won't. And Theo? The boy looked at him. Vincent's voice dropped. Quieter, almost gentle. Don't make me regret this. Theo's face didn't change. I won't do that either. He turned and walked toward the door. Didn't look back. Vincent watched him go, and for the first time in 20 years, he wondered if he'd just made a mistake, or the smartest move of his life. He couldn't tell which, and that bothered him more than he wanted to admit. Saturday came. Theo showed up at 8:47 a.m., 13 minutes early. Vincent noticed. He was in his office when the front desk called up. Sir, there's a young man here for you. Says he has an appointment. Send him to server room B. Tell Klein to meet him there. Klein was the head engineer, 46 years old, MIT graduate, 15 years of experience, and clearly unhappy about babysitting a teenager on his Saturday morning. Vincent watched through the security feed on his tablet. Theo walked into the server room, hands in his pockets, looking around like he was memorizing everything. Klein didn't shake his hand, just gestured toward a workstation. You'll shadow me today. Watch. Don't touch. Questions at the end. Clear. Clear. Klein turned to his screen, started running through routine maintenance protocols. His voice was flat, robotic, like he was reading from a manual he'd memorized years ago. Theo watched for 11 minutes. Didn't interrupt. Didn't ask anything. Then Klein pulled up a diagnostic report. Frowned. That's weird. What is? Theo asked. Server 6 is running hot. Temperature's up 3 degrees from baseline. Probably just needs a coolant check. It's not the coolant. Klein glanced over. Excuse me. The temperature spike. It's not a cooling issue. And you know this how? Because the adjacent servers are running normal temps. If it was coolant, they'd all be affected. It's isolated. Klein's jaw tightened. Then what is it? Theo stepped closer, looked at the screen, checked the processing load. See if there's a background task looping. Klein's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Didn't type. Do it, Theo said quietly. Klein pulled up the task manager, scrolled through active processes. There it was. A backup protocol, running on repeat, cycling every 40 seconds. Klein stared. How did you? The temperature pattern. It's spiking in intervals. That means something's triggering repeatedly. Coolant problems are gradual. This is cyclical. Klein killed the process. The temperature reading dropped immediately. He sat back in his chair, didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, lucky guess. It wasn't a guess. You've been here 10 minutes. 11. And I've been watching the metrics since I walked in. Klein turned to face him. You're telling me you diagnosed a looping process failure just by looking at a temperature graph? Yeah. That's not possible. Then I didn't do it. Klein's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Not quite. He turned back to his screen. Fine. You want to be useful? Run a full system audit. Check for any other anomalies. Report back in an hour. Theo nodded. Sat down at the workstation Klein pointed to. Vincent watched from his office. Leaned back in his chair. The tablet showed Theo's screen. Lines of code. System logs. Diagnostic trees branching across the display. The kid's hands moved fast. Confident. Like he'd done this 1,000 times. 42 minutes later, Theo stood up. Walked over to Klein. Found 3 issues. Klein looked up. 3. Yeah. First one's minor. Server 12 has a failing drive. Still functional, but degrading. You've got maybe 2 weeks before it dies. Klein pulled up server 12. Checked the drive health. Warning indicators. Early stage failure. Exactly like Theo said. Second issue. Your firewall's misconfigured. Port 8443 is partially open. Not enough to trigger an alert, but enough to be a problem if someone knew where to look. Klein's face went pale. He checked the firewall settings. Theo was right. And the third. You've got a memory leak in the email server. It's eating about 2 gigs of RAM per day. Hasn't caused problems yet because the system auto-restarts every night. But if it ever stays up longer than 24 hours, it'll crash. Klein didn't check that one. He just stared at Theo. Who taught you this? Nobody. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Klein stood up, walked to the door, stopped, turned around. You're not shadowing me anymore. Theo frowned. What? You're working with me. As an equal. I'm not wasting time pretending to teach you things you already know. I don't know everything. You know enough. Klein's voice softened. Just slightly. More than enough. Theo didn't respond. Just nodded. Klein walked out. Probably to report the firewall issue to security. Theo sat back down. Kept working. Vincent's tablet showed the kid's face. Focused. Calm. No celebration. No pride. Just back to work. Vincent set the tablet down. Leaned forward. Elbows on his desk. His hands came together. Fingers interlaced. Pressing against each other. He'd spent 40 years in business. Built an empire on reading people. Knowing their angles. Spotting talent before it knew itself. But this kid, there was no angle. No performance. No hustle. Just competence. Pure. Unfiltered. Unaware of its own weight. Vincent's phone buzzed. A text from Klein. The kid's real. I don't know how. But he's real. Vincent stared at the message. Then typed back. I know. He deleted it. Typed again. Keep him busy. See what else he finds. Sent. He looked back at the tablet. Theo was running another diagnostic. Already moving to the next problem. Vincent's chest felt tight. Like something was pressing against his ribs from the inside. He recognized the feeling. It was the same one he got 30 years ago, when he met his first real business partner. The one who saw things nobody else could. The one who helped him build everything. The one he fired 6 months later because he felt threatened. Vincent's hands separated. Fell to the desk. That partnership could have changed everything. Could have doubled his worth. Maybe tripled it. But he chose control over collaboration. And spent 3 decades wondering what he'd lost. He looked at Theo on the screen. The boy was 14. Brilliant. Unpolished. Hungry without knowing he was starving. Vincent could shape that. Guide it. Turn it into something unstoppable. Or he could do what he always did. Use it. Drain it. Discard it when it stopped being useful. His hands curled into fists. Not this time. This time, he'd do it right. He had to. Because if he didn't, he'd spend the next 30 years wondering about this too. And he was running out of time to collect regrets. 3 weeks in, the rhythm changed. Theo came every Saturday. 9 a.m. sharp. Never late. Never early anymore. Just on time. Vincent noticed. Punctuality wasn't about respect. It was about control. The kid was learning. Not from Vincent. From watching. Today was different though. Vincent walked into the server room at 9:47. Theo was alone. Staring at a screen filled with red error messages. Where's Klein? Theo didn't look away from the monitor. Called in sick. Flu. And the backup engineer? Out of state. Conference in Denver. Vincent moved closer. Saw the error logs. What happened? System-wide authentication failure. Started about 20 minutes ago. Nobody can log into anything. Email. Databases. Trading platform. Everything's locked. Vincent's pulse kicked up. Saturday morning meant international markets. Tokyo. Hong Kong. London pre-opening. If they couldn't access the trading platform, how long to fix it? Don't know yet. Guess. Theo finally looked at him. I don't guess. Then give me a range. 2 hours if it's a password server issue. 6 hours if it's deeper. Maybe more. Vincent checked his watch. 9:48 a.m. London opened at 3 p.m. their time. That was 10 a.m. here. 12 minutes. You have 12 minutes to figure out what it is. After that, we're losing money every second. Theo turned back to the screen. I know. His hands moved across the keyboard. Fast but not frantic. Pulling up logs. Tracing authentication requests. Following digital breadcrumbs through the system. Vincent stood behind him. Watching. Unable to help. Hating that feeling. Talk to me, Vincent said. What are you seeing? Authentication requests are reaching the server. Servers responding. but the response isn't making it back to the user. What's blocking it? Don't know. Something between the server and the client. Firewall. Already checked. It's clean. Network. Traffic's flowing normal. Vincent's jaw tightened. 10 minutes now. Theo pulled up a different screen. Network topology. Lines connecting servers to routers to switches to endpoints. He stared at it. Didn't move. Vincent's hands came out of his pockets. Started to reach for his phone. Stopped. If he called someone in, they'd need time to understand the problem. Time to access the system. Time Theo had already spent. Starting over meant guaranteed failure. Staying meant trusting a 14-year-old with millions on the line. 8 minutes. Theo. I see it. See what? The routing table. Someone updated it last night. Maintenance pushed a patch. Changed the authentication pathway. Responses are routing to the old server address. But that server's offline for upgrades. Can you fix it? Yeah. But I need admin access to modify the routing table. Vincent pulled out his phone. Opened the admin portal. Handed it to Theo. Do it. Theo took the phone. Entered the routing configuration. His fingers paused over the screen. What? Vincent asked. If I change this wrong, I could lock us out completely. Nobody gets back in without a hard reset. That means taking everything offline. How confident are you? Theo looked at him. 70%. Vincent's stomach dropped. 70. Maybe 75. The routing syntax is different than I've worked with before. I'm adapting. 6 minutes. Vincent's hands pressed against the desk. What happens if you do nothing? We stay locked out. Guaranteed loss. And if you try? 75% chance I fix it. 25% chance I make it worse. For minutes. Vincent stared at the screen. At the clock. At Theo's face. The kid wasn't scared. Wasn't panicking. Just waiting for a decision. Do it, Vincent said. Theo's fingers moved. Typing commands Vincent didn't understand. Changing values. Rerouting pathways. He hit enter. The screen went blank. Vincent's heart stopped. 3 seconds. 5 seconds. 10. Then the screen refreshed. Green text appeared. Routing table updated. Authentication restored. Theo exhaled. Set the phone down. Vincent grabbed it. Opened the trading platform on his laptop. Logged in. It worked. He checked the timestamp. 9:58 a.m. 2 minutes to spare. Vincent's hands were shaking. Barely, but shaking. He sat down. Hard. Theo stood up. Walked to the water cooler. Filled a cup. Drank it. Refilled it. His hands were steady. Vincent watched him. You just risked everything on a 75% guess. 75% isn't a guess. It's a calculated risk. You could have been wrong. But I wasn't. Vincent's chest felt hollow. What if you were? Theo turned around. Looked at him directly. Then I would have been wrong. And we would have dealt with it. That easy. No. But worrying about it before doesn't change the outcome. Only the work does. Vincent stared at him. The kid was 14. 14. And he just said something Vincent spent 6 decades trying to learn. Do the work. Accept the outcome. Move forward. No drama. No spiral. No paralysis. Just forward. Vincent's phone buzzed. A message from his head of operations. Sir, systems are back online. Crisis averted. Do you know what happened? Vincent looked at Theo. The kid had sat back down. Already running diagnostics. Making sure nothing else was broken. Vincent typed back. Handled. No further action needed. He set the phone down. Walked over to Theo. You did good. Theo nodded. Didn't stop working. Vincent's hands hung at his sides. He didn't know what to do with them. So he just stood there, watching, and remembered something he hadn't thought about in 40 years. When he was 16, his father's business almost went under. Supply chain collapse. Debts piling up. Bankruptcy 2 weeks away. Vincent found the problem. A contract misread by the accountant. One clause that changed everything. He showed his father. His father checked it. Fixed it. Saved the company. Never said thank you. Never acknowledged it. Just moved on. Vincent left home 2 years later. Never looked back. He stood in that server room, watching Theo work, and realized he was about to become his father. Unless he chose differently. Theo. The kid looked up. Vincent's throat felt tight. Thank you. Theo blinked. For what? For fixing it. For being here. For not giving up when it mattered. Theo's face didn't change, but something in his eyes softened. Just barely. You're welcome. Vincent nodded. Turned to leave. Stopped at the door. You're not 75%. You're better than that. Theo almost smiled. Yeah. Yeah. Vincent walked out. And for the first time in decades, his hands felt lighter. 2 months passed. Theo came every Saturday. Sometimes stayed longer than 3 hours. Vincent never mentioned it. Never cut him off. The payments continued. 200 per session. Theo never asked for more. Vincent never offered. But something was changing. Vincent found himself in the server room more often. Not because he needed to be. Because he wanted to be. He'd tell himself it was oversight. Quality control. Making sure the investment paid off. But that wasn't it. It was the way Theo worked. No wasted motion. No second guessing. No performance. Just presence. Vincent hadn't seen that in years. Maybe ever. Today, Theo was optimizing a backup protocol. Something that should have taken Klein 3 days. Theo did it in 4 hours. Vincent sat nearby, pretending to read reports on his tablet. Actually watching. Why do you do it that way? Vincent asked. Theo didn't look up. Do what? Test each node individually instead of running a batch test. Because batch tests miss edge cases. Individual tests take longer, but they're accurate. Most people would choose speed. Most people aren't looking for the right answer. They're looking for an answer that's good enough. Vincent set the tablet down. And good enough isn't enough for you. No. Why not? Theo stopped typing. Looked over. Because if I'm going to do something, I want to do it right. Otherwise, what's the point? The words hit Vincent harder than they should have. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Theo went back to work. Vincent stared at the side of his face. The way his jaw set when he concentrated. The way his eyes tracked across the screen. It reminded him of something. Someone. My son used to say that, Vincent said quietly. Theo's hand slowed. Didn't stop. You have a son? Had. The word hung in the air. Theo's hand stopped now. He turned. I'm sorry. Don't be. He's not dead. Just gone. Gone where? Vincent's jaw tightened. Somewhere I can't follow. Theo didn't push. Just waited. Vincent looked at his hands. Realized they were gripping the edge of the desk. He let go. He wanted to be an engineer. Software. Started in high school. Built his first app at 15. It was good. Really good. Theo listened. Didn't interrupt. He showed it to me. Asked what I thought. What did you say? Vincent's throat felt tight. I told him it was a waste of time. That he should focus on business school. Follow the path I laid out. Build something real. What happened? He stopped showing me things. Stopped asking. A year later, he left for college. We talked twice that year. Once the next. Then not at all. How long ago? 12 years. Theo absorbed that. You ever try to reach out? Once. 3 years ago. Sent him a message. Asked how he was doing. Did he respond? Yeah. Said he was fine. Doing well. Working at some startup in Seattle. Then nothing. You didn't follow up? Vincent shook his head. I didn't know what to say. Theo turned back to the screen. That's hard. Yeah. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Theo spoke. My dad says you can't fix the past. Only what you do next. Vincent looked at him. Your dad sounds smart. He is. In his own way. Vincent's chest ached. You too close. Yeah. He works a lot. But when he's around, he's really around. You know. Vincent didn't know. But he nodded anyway. Theo went back to typing. For what it's worth, your son probably thinks about you too. What makes you say that? Because you're thinking about him. And people don't usually wonder alone. Vincent's hands pressed flat against the desk. He's better off without me. Maybe. Or maybe he's just waiting for you to try again. It's been 3 years. So I don't know if he'd even want to hear from me. Theo shrugged. Only one way to find out. Vincent stared at the floor. What if he doesn't? Then at least you'll know. Right now, you're just guessing. The words landed like a punch. Vincent stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the city below. I told him his dreams were worthless, Vincent said. That building apps was a hobby, not a career. That he'd never make it without my help. Did he make it? I don't know. I stopped checking after the second year. Why? Vincent's reflection stared back at him in the glass. Older, harder, emptier than he remembered. Because it hurt too much to see him succeed without me. Theo didn't respond right away. When he did, his voice was quieter. That's pride talking, not truth. Vincent turned around. What's the difference? Pride protects you. Truth sets you free. Vincent almost laughed. Where'd you hear that? Church. My grandma used to say it. Vincent walked back to the desk. Sat down heavily. Theo was watching him now. Not working. Just present. You remind me of him, Vincent said. Your son. Yeah. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Vincent thought about it. Really thought. I don't know yet. Theo nodded. Turned back to his work. Vincent watched him type. Watched the code appear on the screen. Watched the problem solve itself line by line. And realized something that made his stomach turn cold. He was doing it again. Watching potential from a distance. Admiring it. Using it. But not connecting with it. Not until it was too late. His phone was in his pocket. His son's number still saved. 12 years of silence, one call away from breaking. Or extending. Vincent's hand moved toward his pocket. Stopped. Not yet. He wasn't ready yet. But watching Theo work, seeing that focus, that certainty, that quiet belief in doing things right. Maybe he could learn to be. Maybe there was still time. Theo finished the optimization. Ran the test. Everything green. He leaned back. Done. Vincent looked at the screen. Then at Theo. You're good at this. Thanks. No. I mean really good. You could do this professionally. Build a career. Theo smiled. Small. Tired. I'm 14. I know. But one day you won't be. And when that day comes, don't let anyone tell you it's not worth it. Theo's smile faded. He looked at Vincent. Really looked. I won't. Vincent nodded. And somewhere deep in his chest, something that had been frozen for 12 years started to thaw. Just a little. Just enough to hurt. For months in, Klein called Vincent at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday. We have a problem. Vincent was already awake. Always was. What kind? Database corruption. Client records. Transaction histories. Everything from the last 6 months is compromised. Vincent's blood went cold. 6 months of data meant 6 months of trades. Contracts. Agreements. Legal records. How bad? Career-ending bad. We're talking lawsuits. Regulatory investigations. Maybe criminal charges if we can't prove it wasn't intentional. When did it happen? Sometime overnight. System logs show a cascade failure around 2 a.m. By the time the alerts went out, it was too late. Vincent sat up. Who knows? Just me and the night security tech. I told him to keep quiet until we have a plan. Do we have backups? Yeah, but they're from 3 weeks ago. Anything between then and now is gone. 3 weeks. Hundreds of transactions. Millions in exposure. Vincent closed his eyes. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He arrived in 15. Klein was in the main server room. Dark circles under his eyes. 2 empty coffee cups on the desk beside him. Show me. Klein pulled up the database interface. Red errors filled every screen. Corrupted tables. Missing records. Broken indexes. Vincent's hands curled into fists. How long to restore from backup? 8 hours minimum. But we lose 3 weeks of data. Clients will notice. Regulators will ask questions we can't answer. And if we try to rebuild the corrupted data? Weeks. Maybe months. And no guarantee we get it all back. Vincent stared at the screen. Get everyone in here. Now. Sir, it's 6:30 a.m. I don't care. Get them here. An hour later, the room was full. Engineers. Analysts. The head of operations. Everyone standing around looking at the same unfixable problem. Except Theo. He sat in the corner. Quiet. Hands folded on his lap. Just watching. Vincent noticed him. Theo. You have school. Called in sick. You can't. Already did. Vincent didn't have the energy to argue. Klein walked everyone through the problem. The corruption, the missing data, the impossible timeline. Our options are limited, Klein said. We restore from the old backup and accept the loss. Or we try to rebuild and pray we don't make it worse. The head of operations spoke up. If we restore, we're admitting data loss. That triggers mandatory reporting. Regulators get involved. Clients lose trust. Stock price drops. And if we rebuild, we buy time. But if we fail, the consequences are worse. Everyone started talking at once, arguing, proposing solutions that wouldn't work, spinning in circles. Vincent stood there, hands in his pockets, silent. He felt Theo watching him. Vincent looked over. The kid wasn't paying attention to the arguments. He was staring at the error screen, eyes moving, reading, thinking. Theo. The room went quiet. You see something? Theo stood up, walked to the main monitor, pointed at a line of code in the error log. This corruption pattern. It's not random. Klein frowned. What do you mean? Random corruption spreads everywhere. This is concentrated. Specific tables. Specific time ranges. It's targeted. Targeted how? Like someone knew exactly which records to hit. The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. Vincent stepped forward. You're saying this was deliberate. Maybe. Or maybe it's a cascading failure that followed a specific pathway. Either way, if it's not random, it's traceable. Klein's face went pale. If it's traceable, we can reverse it. Theoretically. Can you do it? Theo looked at Vincent. Not Klein. Vincent. I can try. Vincent's jaw tightened. How long? 4 hours. Maybe 5. And if it doesn't work? Then we're in the same place we are now. Nothing lost. Vincent looked around the room. At the engineers who'd already given up. At Klein, who looked like he hadn't slept in days. At the head of operations, who was probably calculating severance packages in his head. Then back at Theo, 14 years old, standing in a room full of adults who'd run out of answers. Do it, Vincent said. Theo sat down, cracked his knuckles once, started typing. The room cleared out slowly. People drifting away to handle damage control. Send carefully worded emails. Prepare explanations. Vincent stayed. He pulled up a chair, sat 3 feet behind Theo, watched the code scroll past. 2 hours in, Theo found the entry point. The exact moment the corruption started. Here, Theo said. This transaction triggered it. Someone tried to delete a record but didn't close the connection properly. Left the database in a vulnerable state. Next automated backup job ran and spread the corruption. Can you undo it? I can isolate it. Quarantine the corrupted sections. Rebuild from the transaction logs instead of the backup. Will that work? Should. Should isn't good enough. Theo looked at him. Tired, but steady. It's the best I have. Vincent nodded. Then it'll have to be enough. 3 more hours passed. Theo didn't stop. Didn't eat. Didn't drink anything except water Klein brought him. Vincent watched every minute. At 1:47 p.m., Theo leaned back. Exhaled. It's done. Klein rushed over. Checked the database. Records populated. Tables rebuilt. Indexes clean. He ran a verification script. Compared the rebuilt data against backup snapshots. Transaction totals. Client counts. Everything. Perfect match. Klein's hands were shaking. How did you? The logs had everything. Just needed to read them in the right order. Klein sat down, put his head in his hands. Vincent stood up, walked to the window. The company was saved. The data restored. Crisis averted. He should have felt relief. But he didn't. He felt empty. Because Theo fixed the problem. Fixed it perfectly. But Vincent realized something standing there. Looking out at the city he'd spent 40 years conquering. The problem wasn't the database. The problem was him. He built a company where a 14-year-old was the most reliable person in the room. Where competence was rare enough to be shocking. Where he trusted a kid more than the people he paid 6 figures. The fix worked. But nothing actually changed. Vincent's hands pressed against the window glass. Cold. Distant. Behind him, Theo was packing up. getting ready to leave. Theo. The kid stopped. Yeah. Vincent turned around, looked at him, wanted to say thank you, wanted to say something that mattered, but the words caught in his throat, because he realized thanking Theo meant admitting he needed him. And Vincent Cross didn't need anyone. Good work, Vincent said. Theo nodded, walked out, and Vincent stood alone in that server room, surrounded by machines that worked perfectly, and a life that didn't. Vincent didn't go home that night. He sat in his office, lights off, city glowing below him through the window. His phone sat on the desk, screen dark, silent. His son's number was still saved, still there, waiting. 12 years of silence. One call away. Vincent picked up the phone, put it down, picked it up again. His thumb hovered over the name. Pressed down. The screen lit up. Call connecting. One ring. Two. Three. Voicemail. You've reached Marcus. Leave a message. The beep sounded. Vincent opened his mouth. Nothing came out. 10 seconds of silence. He ended the call, set the phone down, stared at it like it had betrayed him. His hands were shaking. He didn't notice until he tried to pick up his coffee and almost spilled it. Vincent stood up, paced to the window, back to the desk, to the window again. His chest felt tight, like something was wrapped around his ribs, squeezing. He thought about Theo, sitting in that server room, 14 years old, fixing problems adults couldn't solve. Not because he was special, because he paid attention, because he cared about getting it right, because nobody told him he couldn't. Vincent thought about his son, 15 years old, building apps in his bedroom, showing his father, asking for approval. And Vincent said no, said it was a waste, said it didn't matter, said focus on what's real. Marcus stopped asking after that, stopped showing Vincent anything, just disappeared into his work, into his dreams, into a life Vincent wasn't part of. And Vincent let him, told himself it was for the best, that Marcus would come back, that he'd realize his father was right, that he'd see the wisdom in the path Vincent laid out. But Marcus didn't come back. He just left. And Vincent spent 12 years pretending it didn't hurt, pretending he didn't check Marcus's LinkedIn profile twice a year to see what he was doing, pretending he didn't feel his stomach drop every time he saw Marcus had moved companies, changed cities, built a life. Without him, Vincent sat back down, put his head in his hands. The server room door had felt so familiar today. Watching Theo work, watching him solve the unsolvable. It was the same feeling he had watching Marcus. Same focus, same certainty, same quiet belief that the work mattered. And Vincent crushed it, not with cruelty, with dismissal, with the assumption that his way was the only way. That success looked like him, sounded like him, followed the path he carved. Anything else was noise. And now Theo sat in that server room every Saturday, fixing Vincent's problems, saving Vincent's company, being everything Vincent told his own son not to be. The irony felt like a knife. Vincent's phone buzzed. A text. From Klein. Kid saved us again. We should give him a raise. Vincent stared at the message. Typed back. Agreed. Deleted it. Typed. He deserves more than money. Deleted that too. Finally typed. I'll handle it. Sent. He set the phone down. Looked out the window. 40 years building an empire. 400 million in the bank. Offices in 12 countries. A name people recognized. And he couldn't call his son. Couldn't say the words that mattered. Couldn't admit he was wrong. Vincent's jaw tightened. Eyes burned. But nothing fell. He hadn't cried in 30 years. Wasn't about to start now. But the weight in his chest grew heavier. He thought about Theo's father. Working maintenance. Making 40,000 a year. Living paycheck to paycheck. But when Theo talked about him, his eyes lit up. My dad's smart in his own way. When he's around, he's really around. Vincent made 400 million and lost his son. Theo's father made 40,000 and kept his. The math didn't make sense. Until it did. Vincent pulled his phone back out, opened his messages, scrolled to Marcus's name, started typing. Marcus, I know it's been a long time. Deleted it. I'm sorry. Deleted it. I was wrong about the apps. About your dream. About everything. His thumb hovered. Press send. 3 dots appeared. Marcus was typing. Vincent's heart stopped. The dots disappeared. No response. 1 minute passed. 2. 5. Nothing. Vincent set the phone down. Face up. Watching. Waiting. 10 minutes. Still nothing. He stood up. Walked to the window. Pressed his forehead against the glass. Cold. Hard. Unforgiving. Like the last 12 years. His phone buzzed. Vincent spun around. Grabbed it. A message from Marcus. Took you long enough. Vincent's breath caught. He typed back. I know. 3 dots again. You busy tomorrow? Vincent looked at his calendar. Back-to-back meetings. Conference calls across 4 time zones. A merger negotiation at 3 p.m. worth $20 million. He typed, no. I'm free. Coffee. 10 a.m. Seattle. Vincent checked flights. Last one left in 40 minutes. He'd never make it. He typed, I'll be there. Called his assistant. Book me on a private charter to Seattle. Leaves in an hour. Sir, you have the merger. Cancel it. But cancel everything tomorrow. I'm unavailable. He hung up. Stared at the phone. Marcus sent one more message. See you tomorrow, Dad. Vincent's eyes blurred. Just for a second. He blinked it away. Typed back. See you tomorrow. He sat there. Phone in his hands. Breathing. For the first time in 12 years, he felt something other than empty. It wasn't happiness. Not yet. It was possibility. The kind Theo carried in his hands every Saturday. The kind Vincent spent decades dismissing. The kind that said maybe it's not too late. Maybe you can still fix this. Not with money. Not with power. Not with control. With presence. With showing up. With being really around when it matters. Vincent looked at the server room camera feed on his computer. Empty now. Lights off. Quiet. But he could still see Theo sitting there. Focused. Certain. Unshaken. Saying the same thing every time. I can fix this. Vincent didn't know if he could fix 12 years of silence. Didn't know if Marcus would forgive him. Didn't know if tomorrow would heal anything or break it worse. But for the first time in his life, he was willing to try. Not because he had the answer. Because someone showed him it was worth attempting anyway. A 14-year-old kid who believed problems were solvable if you paid attention. If you showed up. If you cared enough to get it right. Vincent packed his bag. Grabbed his coat. Headed for the door. Stopped. Turned back. Pulled out his phone one more time. Sent a message to Theo. Thank you. For everything. You fixed more than you know. He didn't wait for a response. Just walked out. Into the night. Toward tomorrow. Toward something he'd been running from for 12 years. His son. His second chance. His unthinkable. 6 months later. Theo walked into the server room at 9 a.m. Saturday. Like always. But Vincent wasn't there. Klein was. Sitting at the main desk. Smiling. He's not coming today, Klein said. Theo stopped. Why not? He's in Seattle. With his son. Theo set his bag down. Oh. 3rd weekend in a row, actually. That's good. Yeah. Klein pulled up a chair. Sit. We need to talk. Theo sat. About what? Klein slid a folder across the desk. Your contract. Vincent wanted me to go over it with you. Theo opened it. His eyes scanned the first page. Froze. This says full scholarship. MIT. Starting next fall. Keep reading. For years. Full tuition. Room and board. Plus a stipend for expenses. That's the education part. Look at page 3. Theo flipped ahead. Read silently. His hands started shaking. This is a job offer. Junior systems architect. Starts the summer after you graduate high school. Salaries at market rate. Benefits included. Theo looked up. Why? Klein leaned back. Because Vincent doesn't invest in things that don't pay off. And you've paid off more than anyone in this building. I'm 15. You're 15 now. You'll be 18 when the job starts. 22 when you finish MIT. And by then, you'll be running circles around people twice your age. Theo stared at the contract. I can't accept this. Why not? Because it's too much. Klein's face softened. Kid, you saved this company 3 times. Prevented millions in losses. Fixed problems nobody else could touch. This isn't charity. This is business. It doesn't feel like business. That's because Vincent's learning to care about more than just profit. Klein stood up, walked to the window. He's different now. Lighter. Talks about his son. Smiles occasionally. Even said thank you last week without being prompted. And you think that's because of me? I think you reminded him what actually matters. Theo looked down at the contract. At the numbers. At the future spelled out in legal terms and signatures. What if I'm not good enough? Klein turned around. You fixed a corrupted database in 5 hours that I said was impossible. You're good enough. What if I fail? Then you fail. And you learn. And you get better. That's what you do. Theo's hands smoothed the pages. Flat. Even. When does he need an answer? No deadline. He said whenever you're ready. Theo nodded slowly. Closed the folder. Klein watched him. You going to think about it? Yeah. Good. Take your time. Klein grabbed his coat. I'm heading out. Lock up when you're done. He walked to the door. Stopped. Turned back. For what it's worth, Theo, you changed this place. Not just the systems. The people. Theo looked up. How? You showed us what it looks like to care about getting it right. Not getting it done. Getting it right. Klein smiled. We needed that. He left. Theo sat alone in the server room. Contract on the desk in front of him. Future spread out in black ink and white paper. He pulled out his phone. Texted his dad. Need to talk tonight. Something big happened. 3 dots appeared immediately. Good big or bad big. Theo smiled. Typed. Good. Really good. I'll bring pizza. See you at 6. Theo set the phone down. Looked around the server room. At the racks he'd fixed. The systems he'd optimized. The problems he'd solved. For months ago, he walked in here thinking he could fix a server. He did. But that's not what actually broke. Vincent was broken. Had been for years. Buried under success and control and distance. And somehow, without meaning to, Theo reminded him how to be present. How to show up. How to believe something was worth the effort even when the outcome wasn't guaranteed. Theo didn't fix the server. He fixed the man who owned it. And that man went home and fixed what he'd broken 12 years ago. 3 weeks later, Vincent called Theo. Asked him to come to the office. Said it was important. Theo showed up Tuesday afternoon. Vincent was in his office. Marcus was sitting across from him. Theo stopped at the door. Sorry, I didn't know you had company. You're not interrupting, Vincent said. Come in. Theo walked in. Vincent gestured to Marcus. Theo, this is my son, Marcus. Marcus, this is Theo. The one I told you about. Marcus stood up. Shook Theo's hand. Good to finally meet you. Dad says you're the reason I'm here. Theo blinked. What? Vincent spoke quietly. I told Marcus what you did. How you saw problems everyone else missed. How you didn't give up even when the odds were bad. He paused. And how you reminded me what it looks like to believe in something. Marcus smiled. He also said you told him pride protects you, but truth sets you free. Theo's face flushed. That was my grandma's line. Well, it worked. Marcus looked at his father. Got him on a plane to Seattle. Got us talking again. Got us here. Vincent's jaw was tight, but his eyes were soft. I wanted you to meet him, Vincent said to Theo. Wanted you to see what you fixed. Theo looked between them. Father and son. Sitting in the same room. Talking. Present. I just fixed a server, Theo said quietly. Vincent shook his head. No. You fixed the part of me that forgot how to care about people more than profits. His voice cracked. Just barely. You reminded me what I lost. And you gave me the courage to get it back. The room went silent. Marcus put a hand on his father's shoulder. Squeezed. Vincent's hand covered his son's. Held it there. Theo felt his throat tighten. You would have figured it out eventually, Theo said. Maybe, Vincent said. But I don't know if I had eventually left. He looked at Theo. Really looked. Thank you. For showing up. For caring. For doing what you said you'd do. Theo nodded. Couldn't speak. Marcus smiled. Dad says you're going to MIT. If I accept, you should. He's going to need someone to keep this place running while he takes more time off. Vincent almost laughed. I'm not retiring. No, but you're learning to delegate. Which is close enough. They talked for another hour. About school. About engineering. About what comes next. When Theo left, Vincent walked him to the elevator. You never answered me, Vincent said. About MIT. Theo pressed the button. I'm still thinking. What's holding you back? I don't know if I deserve it. The elevator doors opened. Theo stepped inside. Vincent held the door. You do. But even if you didn't, that's not how this works. You don't earn second chances. You just take them when they show up. The doors started to close. Vincent let them. Theo rode down in silence. Walked out into the sun. Pulled out his phone. Looked at the contract Klein had sent him digitally. Scrolled to the signature line. Signed it. Sent it back. And for the first time in his life, Theo understood something his father always said. You can't fix the past, but you can fix what you do next. And sometimes that's enough.